Good evening. It is December 15th, 2015. It's 5 p.m. and this is a meeting of the Law and Ordinance Committee. My name is John Schweizer. To my right is Ms. Lynn Snee, and to my left is Mr. Bobby Phillips. And we are here to discuss a change to Stonebridge Meadows PD. Mr. Davis, will you be talking to this?
Yes, thank you. Essentially, I'll make this short and sweet for you. The applicant, Judy Tome, is here as well. Essentially, what she wants to do is make an amendment to the Stonebridge Meadows plan development. If you look at section 4, there's currently 22 lots, and it has an existing house at the very tip of the north. It's a 1.66 acre that has a house and some outbuildings. Those are being proposed to be raised, and with the raising of that, they would redistribute some property lines that would leave 26 lots instead of 24. These lots are consistent with the R3B zoning standards that we have, which makes up probably 80 to 85% of the development of the PD. And staff is actually recommending approval, as it does create lots consistent with R3B. There's a lot that is actually greater than the R3B requirements, and we feel that the proposed alteration does not disturb the plan development. So we are recommending approval on this. One of the things that we want to point out is that some of the items that have been discussed at the public hearing that was brought to the last council meeting talked about changes to the CCRs. Those changes were strictly for phase 3 only, would not affect phase 4. However, there's no guarantees that the developer could change the CCRs to affect the rest of the phases, so that's probably something to consider.
Okay. And I take it that when we move this into, when we change the zoning on it, we change the farm also?
Yeah, you would be actually approving what she has proposed, the new layout of the development. So you'd be proposing this, which would be the actual plan development. So
yeah, but the original development did not include the farm, correct?
the original development did it included leaving the house that they are proposing to raise.
Okay.
So yes, that would be.
So it was not subdivided.
Okay,
in
correct.
The original.
Okay.
And just to also clarify, the Planning Commission did approve staff's recommendation at their board meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Snee.
Tim, you may have said this, but how many lots are in phase 4?
Once
the new plan is...
Once the new plan would be 26.
Okay, just in that area. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, a couple. So we're in this phase, in phase section 3, we're reducing the homes from a 2,100 square foot to a 1,700 square foot. Is that correct?
That was done by the developer, part of altering the CCRs.
Okay. And then there are reduced 2 stories square footage also, and then roof pitches and some other things. That's all included in those changes?
Yeah, that's in phase 3. And
Okay.
section 3, yeah, and what we're talking about is section 4.
Right.
Okay.
Got it. I just wanted to clarify where the amendment was done by the declarant at that time.
Okay.
So as far I'm sorry, Mrs. Tim, you may know this, but the house that is going to be raised, is that a small white structure, 1 story, with a couple of outbuildings in back?
I believe it's a 2-story brick structure, I believe.
Oh, it's the 2-story brick? Okay, got it. All right. And these are only for, the amendments, or the only changes were to phase or section 3 that at the time. So all of the current CC&Rs and all of the other conditions of build would apply to section 4.
That's correct.
And that the 1,700 square foot goes back up to 2,100 for that section, and all other relevant 2 stories and pitches of roofs and other things.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay. But unless there's a language to address that, everything to specifically tie that down, that could happen at another section at some point with the declarant making those sole decisions. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah, it could be changed, yes.
Okay. Very good. That's all I have at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I'm glad to see Mrs. Toom here. I just had a couple of quick questions. First of all, that house is not like on the National Historic Register of Places that, you know, is 2,000 years old and, okay. And what's the status of the work that's to be completed out there, the benches and the walking path and?
We've been in communication with this. Essentially, in the beginning of Phase 3, there was supposed to be a gazebo installed, which it has been installed, a walking trail around the pond, some benches, and then a park shelter. At our Planning Commission meeting, it was decided to escrow the park shelter because we didn't think it would be done before, in the winter months, it wouldn't be built. And the walking path is basically ready to be asphalted. At this point in time, they're waiting for the ground to freeze to get the machinery to that so it can have asphalt. And the benches have been purchased and they'll be placed out as soon as the asphalt is put in.
Okay, that's fine, thanks. No, nothing else. Thank you.
Mr. Heath?
I don't think I have any questions at this time. You answered the few that I had.
Mrs. Oda? Do you have any questions? It's the rules.
I'm just confused, and just straighten me out. I'm thinking that the brick house is to this side of Washington Road,
Yeah, the brick house would actually
is
be,
over here.
the brick house would be right here that they're demolishing.
It's on that side of Washington Road?
Yes.
I thought it was more across from,
No,
the
they're actually,
school.
yeah, these are already built. These houses are
no,
already
no, the brick house that's coming out, the
Yeah.
farmhouse is
Yeah,
right
that's,
here?
that's right there. These houses are already built as part of
I
Phase 1.
thought it was
yeah.
on this side
No,
of-
it's up there.
Okay. No further questions at this time.
Okay. Mrs. Baker, do you have any questions? Mr. Mayor? Anybody in the audience have any comments? No.
Lester Connor, 1210 South Clay Street, Troy, Ohio. This council went ahead and made emergency legislation so that the citizens couldn't get a referendum up against this Stonebridge Meadows again. So now you're kind of under the gun for this developer. And I don't know if any of these rumors that I'm hearing is true, but to sit in their car in front of their homes and intimidate people, that's not very professional. I would like to see the original stay as original and not change it at all. I don't know why, you know, I know you've said that it was going to be 5 o'clock for this meeting, and none of them other people are here, and I don't know if it's because of their jobs and they couldn't get off work or what, but it's a shame that they aren't here to voice their opinions. My only comment is you know, the developers do this over and over and over again. They start out with one plan, then they want to keep changing the plan. And it ain't for the better of the people in the development, it's always for the money that's going into the developer's pocket. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments? Mr. Phillips?
Are you asking what I would like to do with it? I think it would be okay to proceed with the changes, however, with an amendment, which would fall under section 10.1 of the CCNRs that reads basically the declarant has the right to make the changes as they see fit. To amend that to read that the declarant may amend subject to approval of council of all future phases in the CCNRs with this subdivision or this PD.
And do we need to clarify which sections those are that are in the future? Or is it any section after?
We're only dealing with section 4 with this
Right.
thing. So anything,
So any other sections?
Yes.
Other than section 4?
Right. To my understanding from reading the documents here, that the only changes that will have been made to any residences or any other things would be to section 3.
Okay.
That section 4 will revert to the current square footages, or the larger square footages, not the reduced ones, to section 3. but that any other changes to any other conditions, covenants, or restrictions come before us with our approval, not one entity outside of this, outside of us.
And section 1 and 2 are complete now, is that right? Or close to completion?
There they are.
Yeah, they're pretty close to completion. One, I believe, is done, two is fairly close.
Okay.
If I can ask for some clarification, because I'm hearing a couple of different things. So your amendment would not do anything to Section 3,
Correct.
recognizing that Section 3 has already been filed with the county, and that I guess you're calling it a condition, would involve anything from this point forward,
Correct.
to include Section 4 through, I believe there's 7, is there 7 sections mapped out total?
Yes, yep.
So any other changes to the CCRs after the one that was filed, I think in October 2nd, I think is when it was filed, would be subject to council approval? Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. That was what I was hoping to clarify. Thank you. I'm fine with that.
I'm good with that also.
Is this needing to be emergency?
Is this emergency?
The legislation is not an
No, because
emergency.
Oh, this is.
That's
right,
true,
it's going
that's
to
true.
second
We're on
reading.
the third.
This is third
Sorry,
reading.
third.
Now, with it being amended at the,
It'll have to go before.
can I still vote on it?
No,
Not voted on Monday night.
that's not my understanding. My understanding is that council could amend the ordinance on Monday night.
Right.
It would take a 3/4 vote of all council members to amend an ordinance of this nature before you. Right.
But they couldn't vote on it.
But that cannot be voted on
So
at the same meeting.
Wait a minute. So you could vote to amend it
Monday.
Monday, and it'd be the next Monday's, or the next council meeting, they could approve it as amended. But it would have to take, a 3/4 majority to reject the adoption of the change, even as amended.
In January.
Right.
But we would just be
Is that right, Sue?
proposing our committee report with the amendment.
Right.
I believe
Right,
so.
recommended.
Right.
But it would have to be acted on at the first meeting in January, because otherwise you'd be outside the 90 days from, I think, the Planning Commission recommendation.
Right. If you don't act on it within 90 days, it's rejected.
That was the Planning Commission meeting of
And so
October.
the applicant would
14th.
have to restart the process all over again if that happened? Okay. So hopefully take care of that so that doesn't.
So your recommendation this evening would be to approve it with those conditions?
Correct.
And amend the ordinance? You're recommending the
Section
council
4.
amend the ordinance to include that
Yes.
language?
4 through 7, actually. It'd be sections 4 through 7 at this point.
I don't know that you'd want to specify the
No, just the
sections
plan
Just anything from
Just
the
the plan
state level.
Right,
Okay.
from this point forward.
right.
Okay. Is that,
And that I'm in agreement with.
Yes.
okay. It's
Okay.
unanimous.
All right.
Anything else to come before law and ordinance?
No, sir.
We are adjourned.